All right, let's get into this bad boy. Krieg bundle. This has been an interesting week for me because I've been spending some time reading more of Clifford Ball's work. Now, you guys will know I introduced Clifford Ball to you on this channel about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, because I was going through this short story of Duar the Accursed. And I am saying Duar the Accursed because that's how I'm choosing to pronounce that particular name. I've now gotten through the next two stories that Clifford Ball wrote, which were in the same genre and in that same sort of Hyborian Age-esque type world that he was building. And it's a story of Rald, who's the thief of Forthe. And I'm not making that crap up. That's literally what he's called, the thief of Forthe. And I gotta tell you, that's one that's tricky to get out correctly 100% of the time. What was Clifford Ball going for when he created this Rald character? It's actually a fairly unique character, and you can actually see a fair amount of change in this character over the simple two stories that were written and that were published between 1937 and 1938. But I think something happened here, which unfortunately is going to leave us wanting at the end of the day if we're looking for more Rald. And you can really see it in the last chapter of the second story. Really strange things happen with this Rald character over these two stories. And I thought what we do today is we just walk through some of the observations that I made when I was going through this. I'm not going to give you any spoilers as to what happens in the stories, though. I want you guys to have the experience of going and finding this book yourself and reading it yourself. And then you can ask yourself afterwards, did I see the same things Tennessee Fats saw? Was Tennessee Fats completely out of line? Well, you know what? After you've read it, you might think I am. But these are the things that I'm thinking as of right now. Without any further ado, let's get into the books. Okay, so let's talk about Rald here and what we got in these two stories. Now, these were rather short ones, so you gotta bear in mind, Clifford Ball was writing these to specifically be published in anthology magazines where you'd have limited page count and you're really just trying to sell a story. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you were going for here. And I get that. And you have two stories that he wrote here. The first one was called The Thief of Forthe, and the second one was called A Goddess Awakens. First one published in 1937, second one published in 1938. Now, the first one was a quick one. This was sort of an intro to Rald, as we're just going to refer to him here, where this Thief of Forthe thing is just too much for us to spit out all the time. So we're just going to go with Rald, okay? So, intro story. And in this intro story, you have limited exposure to Rald as a person. You see the situations he's in, and you get to watch the situations and how he's interacting with other characters. And really what you get from that is almost like I have to say, almost like a buffoonish sort of barbarian, a buffoonish sort of thief, a buffoonish sort of romantic. Interesting character with a sense of chivalry that flows throughout the story. He's basically tricked into doing something, which guess what? It's kind of alluded to in the title, you know, the Thief of Forthe. He thiefed something. I know I just used that in the wrong context, but I don't care. We're going to use it here. Anyways, he did this. And while he was in this, he sort of had a change of heart. He sort of recognized, maybe I shouldn't be going down this path. And the story was sort of opened up in such a way, and it was somewhat blocky in the way it was written, that you really were developing this early Conan-esque type thief, where you have a lot of dialogue about how obviously this person is physically huge, and the sinews and the muscles and, you know, rippling and all the appropriate terms are thrown in here to give you a sense that this is a physically large person. You get a sense of, okay, I'm talking about a physically big dude here. That kind of reminds us of somebody, doesn't it? And he's very good at breaking into things. That also kind of reminds us of something, doesn't it? But you have this sort of overarching moral code that follows with it. Again, also kind of reminds us of somebody, doesn't it? Very quick story, a little bit of sorcery mixed in there, a little bit of the whole wizardry sort of thing. And it unfortunately ends with Rald heading off into the sunset to continue his adventures. Good first story, good intro story, and I honestly think Clifford Ball was basically setting this whole thing up. Let's continue to build him up as a character. Let's say this is our buffoonish type, you know, kind of fun-loving guy. Now let's go into the next story. Now, the next story was a little bit larger. It was a little bit more complex, and I really think that Clifford Ball was going for sort of a swan song on this one. He was doing his masterpiece of Rald. Let's draw him out in this larger story. And you have Rald in a very difficult situation at the beginning of the story. He then moves into an even more difficult situation in the middle of the story. And in the end, the story just sort of wanders off at the end. It's an interesting one because in here, you don't really have a lot of Rald. And I think this was sort of the kicker on this one, where I think Clifford Ball was attempting to use his counterpart or his friend or his partner in crime, as we'll call him, a partner in crime. They weren't committing a crime, but we'll call him partner in crime. Sidekick. Hey, let's go with that one. He's using this sidekick to show the interaction between Rald and this Thwain guy, or whatever the heck his name was. And you see Thwain developing as a character in the story very well. You see the actual character changing the way he looks at things and changing the way he's approaching things, and morally and emotionally growing as the story goes on. But Rald is seen as this stoic character that's just sort of sitting here as this rock. He's the straight man, okay? He's your guy sitting in the middle here. And Martin and Lewis, he's the Martin. Yeah, I'd say the Martin is probably a good analogy on this one. He's that guy, while you've got the Lewis over here doing all the silly. It's a thing. That's what Thwain was sort of, I guess, mapped out to be. Some people I know would look at this and say it's the opposite, but really, look at the sense of humor between the two and you'd say, well, which one actually is the Martin and the Lewis in this one? There's two sides to this one. The end of this one sort of goes off with a fairly large adventure and a fairly large magical encounter with what we're assuming is a goddess at this point in time. Really an interesting thing, and really upping the level of the game. Clifford Ball going through that road of Robert E. Howard increasing the level of danger as the story goes on. But then you get this sort of rush thing at the end, and I think this is where really economics comes into play. Something happened in the last chapter of that book. I actually believe Clifford Ball meant for Rald to be larger, meant for him to actually go on, meant for him to be a bigger thing. I think something happened though, and this is where possibly a publishing deadline comes into play. I don't know. For any of you out there that are Clifford Ball experts and know this, I'd love to hear the tippity-tippities down below that give me the answer. But that last chapter, this is an interesting one. You know, back in those 1940s propaganda films that we sometimes see on Teleboo every once in a while, you know, those ones where they're talking about, well, we're the Americans and we're going to take that hill and we're going to do this. And you know what, at the end of it, suddenly there's this wonderful preachy scene where an elder statesman will come in and make some just grandiose blah, 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 and that's why we're going to win. And, you know, it happens, and you see it, and it's part of the formula of those propagandic-like films that were back in the day. It happened here. Read that last chapter very carefully. Read it, and you'll see what happens. It's not so much the propaganda spin of it, but it's one of these things where suddenly Rald, who entirely along the way has been this stoic rock of a person that's just unmovable. No, I'm digging my heels in, you move. He goes from being that to suddenly, well, here's how your kingdom is going to get fixed, and here's what you're going to do, Queenie, and here's your Thwain, or whatever the heck your name is, you're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And this wonderful psychobabble analysis of everybody around him, which Rald is doing. And he says, and at the end of it, this is what we're going to do. And everybody's so enamored with what he's going to do, they snap right to it. And that's the end of the story. A very quick wrap up to what really was a rather complex build up. Now, there have been some Robert E. Howard stories where you get near the end and suddenly you see him, and it's done. I get it. I do get it. It could be Clifford Ball was trying to follow that model as well, but this one seemed a little too rushed to me. So, was this supposed to be a Conan character? I do believe Rald was supposed to be it. I think Duar was sort of a test of sort of a, let's call it a king Conan, an elder statesman Conan, but with a little bit more of a sorcery twist to it. Then he went back into the Rald. Let's go into the younger version of Conan. Let's go to the younger version of this prototype and carry this through now. The problem was that he didn't carry it all the way through. And that last chapter, that's the one that's got me scratching my head the most. Interesting story. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. Well, everybody, that's our video for today. This was a weird one for me. Honestly, I'm still conflicted as to what I think of this Rald character. I think Clifford Ball was clearly going for a Conan type thing. It's the language. It's the language and the other part of it, and this is something I make fun of with Conan all the time, and I do it, of course, from a place of love, which is, why is he the Rico Suave of the Hyborian age? Every single person seems to be throwing themselves at Conan. And I gotta tell you, I don't know here, guys. Like, you're a big, muscly dude, covered in scars, probably stinks to high heaven, hasn't bathed in forever, covered in God knows what, has stuck his schlong, whatever, into, you know, everywhere he can go. This is not a guy you want to possibly be in an amorous relationship with. Let's just put it that way. But for some reason, everybody just throws himself at him. And Rald has that happen to him repeatedly in this. First you get one queen, then you get another queen in there. Such a strange thing, and I don't know what that's all about, but clearly very much a Conan type character that just wasn't given the chance to be more. Hopefully one day somebody's going to pick up this character and say, you know what, I'm going to continue developing this. I think there was really something to go here, and I hope they'll take this to the next level. I hope I'm going to see more Rald in my own lifetime, where I'm going to be able to read that and go, there it is. That's the finish. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next video. All right, it's Easter egg time, and if you stuck around for this long, well, by God, if I got something fun and exciting for you, probably not that fun and exciting. What we're going to do today is actually just an unboxing, and this is the end of a test project I've been doing. I like putting these little snippets in at the end for you guys, because I'm not a one-trick pony. I don't just sit around all the time talking Conan. I also do a bunch of other things. And as you guys know, I read other comics at the same time, and I do read other genres. What's funny is this Rald thing, I actually finished this one early this week, and I spent most of the week just thinking about it. And I was like, so weird. What was this character supposed to develop into? I never really got a clear answer in my head, which was an odd one. And I alluded a little bit to this in the actual video. But the problem is I wasn't able to continue reading on to the next story because I don't remember things after I go too far past them. So I'm looking forward to going further into that one. I think the next story in this that Clifford Ball did just heads straight to the Hyborian Age. And I think it's like, I don't know, I'm going to say Greek. I don't know, Greek mythology type story. That could be kind of fun. This could be interesting, but I don't know. Wait and see when I get into it. But this is the end of a test. You guys remember something I may have mentioned. I'm sorry about flailing the knife around. I may have mentioned this previously. I know I did. Is I'm doing a test right now on pull. And pull, obviously your pull is at a comic shop. I'm doing the test to find out really who does give me the better books. And there's a reason why I've done this, because as some of you may or may not know, I'm here in Canada. And the issue is, I continue to find the books that I'm getting from my local comic shop are just trashed. Like, they're reader copies before I've even had them come home and become reader copies. I don't understand that. And I'm convinced it's not the local comic shop because I've seen how they manage their books there. And it's funny because when you look at older books that are in their back issues, they don't have any of these systemic issues I'm constantly seeing coming out of new books that I'm buying off the shelf in the pull list. This is the last month where I'm going to do the duplicate pull list. And the reason why I did this was I wanted to get the first 5 issues of Titan Comics Conan the Barbarian in with duplication from my local Canadian shop and from a US distributor, a US shop that I got a pull on, and say, well, which one is better? We'll do a video over the holiday season here where we're actually going to compare the two and say, now out of the two, here's my concrete answer. The other thing I'll do is I'll actually do a bit of a discussion on price while I'm at it. That's kind of neat. Look at that. It's like a piece of cardboard with a little... Are they giving this to me as a divider for the boxes? I don't know. It seems to have that look about me. Ooh, now this one is a big one. Just give you guys a sense. Okay, this is, I think, I don't know, 10 pounds of comics, something like that. And some of this is going to be me picking up some back issues. And some of this is going to be me picking up my pull. And then that should be it. This is interesting. Check this out. So this giant box, half of it was just full of packing paper. When I first saw this come into the house and I picked it up, I thought, that seems a little light for that much books. But yeah. There you go. Hindsight being 2020, it is in fact a little light for that much books because it has actually a few less books than the entire box. Let's get this bad boy open and we'll show you guys what's in here. There are a couple of interesting ones in here. I know because I looked at the packing slip here earlier today when I was saying, well, what's coming in on this order? There is some pull which does include that issue 5 of the Titan comic, Conan the Barbarian. That's in here. But there's also some stuff in here that's specific to me. And some of you have noticed when you look at the back of the library and you look at what's behind me on that, you said, Tennessee Fats, can you showcase some of the books that are in there? Which, by the way, I have no problem doing. And we'll continue to work those into when we get to our cutscenes here at the end. But some people have specifically noticed, is a Tennessee Fats, you got some Superman in there. Well, yeah, that's true. I do have some Superman in there. Superman, as far as DC goes, is the one character that I will pick up and I'll read happily at any given point in time, unless the writing sucks. And I gotta tell you, as a guy who's picked up a few Marvel issues lately, and has picked up a few DC issues lately, I can tell you, I'm definitely giving it to DC as far as the writing quality goes. And it seems to be consistent these days on the newer books. All right, let's start with what we come out of the pull list here. Okay, so we've got a Supergirl special. This is obviously one of the variant covers. Which one's this one? Variant cover by Frank Cho. That's pretty cool. I have been reading the Supergirl, and I have been reading Power Girl as well. The reason why I picked those up on a whim was actually because of the streaky content. As some of you may know, I have Olive, Bean's younger sister, and Bean the comic-eating cat in the house. So I do like my cats. So I enjoy when I get to see a cat or a Super Friends pet or something like that into an actual comic. I think that is a good thing. Okay, this is a stack here. And this is specific to me, and it goes back to that Superman comic I made earlier. It's been 30 years since the death and the return of Superman. I didn't pick up a whole bunch of that Death of Superman stuff because when I was looking at it, I was like, $30 for a reprint of a... Why? Like, I don't care if it's a foily cover. Why? But the return ones had some Dan Jurgens stuff in it. I do like that stuff. So I did pick up the Return of Superman, the 30th anniversary issue. I picked up a foily die-cut version of it. Ooh, look at the shiny. Fancy. And because this is very cool, this actually harkens back to exactly match the original die-cut covers. Return of Superman 30th issue with the die-cut cutout there. And what I always liked about these, and I always think people have kind of undervalued and sort of maybe put these aside a bit, is there were some key Superman first issues in those Return of Superman stories. Everybody just seems to just poo-poo them and just shove them off to the side, which I find kind of interesting. All right, so here is the Conan issues. Now, we'll continue on with the DC run first. There is the Supergirl special. This is a, what is it? A Will Jack cover. I have the foil one of this already, but this is a standard one, so I got that. More of that. Oh, there you go. A second one of the foily one. Ooh, fancy, shiny. I do like my 1990s throwback stuff. Another thing that I picked up that I thought was kind of interesting lately was, hold on, let's make sure I got it in here. So I want to show it to you guys. The Ultimate Universe. Now, this is an interesting one. I actually like the Marvel Ultimate Universe when it came out the first time. I lost track of it, though, after a certain period of time. I never did read the Ultimatum story. I know that was dark, like dark. And I did not read that. I read the X-Men stories that came out after it, which was the Arthur Adams series, which had the first appearance of Jimmy Hudson. That was his name. Interesting story. I like that one. I like the art in it. I think they did a good job. And actually, it's funny that alludes to something else that we got over here, which I'll show you in a minute. But I do like the fact that Marvel is actually working on bringing back the Ultimate Universe. Kind of made me sad when they unwound that years ago and said, oh, by the way, the only person to survive the Ultimate Universe, oh yeah, it was Miles Morales. I'm like, oh, come on. Come on. Like, you're just pandering at this point in time. Anyways, Action Comics. This is a Carla Cohen variant. I've enjoyed the Action Comics thing. There's a lot of glare on that, eh? I've enjoyed the Action Comics so far because it's becoming more of an anthology book with a bunch of different stories within it of different members of the, what we'll call the super family. That's cool. I enjoy that. I did read one of the more recent issues of Superman as well, and that's becoming an interesting story as well. I think I got issue, was it 7 or 8 that I read on that? I'm actually interested in going back and learning a little bit more about how it is that Lex Luthor is now a good guy, which I think happened back in issue 1, because I think he gave LexCorp to Superman. I may be misreading that. I don't know. Weird story, though, right? Another one that came in that is a Marvel one, though. What If Dark, The Tomb of Dracula. I actually was working on my Tomb of Dracula run for quite some time leading up to COVID. And then when prices got stupid, I said, and I'm done. We are done. Comic collecting is over for me as far as the old key issues, because clearly speculators are killing this. These are not worth this much. And lo and behold, guess what? They've come back down. Who saw it coming? Couldn't tell you. So the actual art germ variant, that's what this one is, right? Tomb of Dracula, kind of cool. Kind of cool. That actually is a cover appearance of, this is Lilith, the daughter of Dracula? Yes, that appeared in that Giant Side Chillers book, which I had on display on one of the shelves in the library. I must have put it away. Anyways, okay, then of course we've got the giant stack right there of the Conan the Barbarian issue number 5. And I gotta tell you, I know when I got this one from my local comic shop, I noticed a systemic theme of a line, a white ink line that was literally scratched along the covers on several of these, right by the spine, which I just thought was, I was like, are you kidding me? So we got cover A, we got cover B, oh, this one will come back to in a minute. We got, I don't even know which one this is. I know I bought it. I know I bought it for a reason, and it's pretty freaking awesome. I don't even know which one that one is, but that is pretty amazing. I'll have to look that one up later, because off the top of my head, who knows. Cover C, with, this is supposed to be Bellet, I believe, or was that the other? No, this was the, no, this was supposed to be Bellet, I think. Yes, not the other female character that was in that story, which is inside. I'll talk about Conan the Barbarian number 5 and do a review on that one on another day. Probably when we're done that story arc, and I'll just do an overall discussion of the arc. You got cover D, you got cover E, you got the black sketch one, which you would get a wonderful sketch done on. And then this is the Virgin variant on this one. Pretty cool. Quite neat. And then the last one I got in here, now I believe this is the Savage Red Sonja. This is the Arthur Adams Virgin variant. Remember I talked about Arthur Adams on the the Ultimate X-Men story that I was talking about that was post-Ultimatum. Arthur Adams does some really fantastic stuff. I bought one of his art books before that I have signed, and there's some really cool, especially the way he does monsters. His monster detail is incredible. And if you've ever read the Ultimate X story, and I would encourage you to do so, it's at least the first 5 issues. Those are the ones that I've read that I've really enjoyed. His depiction of the Hulk, when the Hulk comes in, is just like, it's really, really amazing. And his art sketchbook that I have that was signed by him, sure, it's got Johnny, whatever her name is, which is some sort of, I guess, a Rocket Robin Hood type female character. But on top of that, it does have a fair amount of beautiful monster work within it as well. Things that I did add in, which were older issues, Void Rivals. I missed this when it came out, and I need to get copies of this to read it because I'm very excited about this Energon universe that's going on right now. That was number 5. That's number 4. I know there's variant covers on these. Number 1, very cool. Number 3 and number 2 I already had. Number 2 is actually the issue wherein you have Starscream. Not Starscream. What was the guy? He's the giant jet. That's a scientist. And jumps, something jump jet. I don't remember the guy's name. Listen, old man brain, you got to give it to me. But he was in that one. Pretty cool. I've actually read that one the other day. Oh, but check it out. Oh, there's other stuff that's been thrown in here with my other ones, because here's the Transformers number 2. I did enjoy Transformers number 1. I told you guys I'd be picking that one up and continuing it. I have a Virgin variant of that number 5 with Bellet on it. Bellet being probably my favorite Robert E. Howard female character, and probably my favorite Robert E. Howard story is The Queen of the Black Coast. Still have to do the Battle Royale on that one, and that's the one I've been terrified of since day one of taking on this project. And then you got a foily variant. Look at that. Pretty cool. Of number 5. So I do like the fact that I'm getting more variants through this. And the last thing I've got on here is a Perillo Virgin variant of Red Sonja. Not sure which issue that is. And Power Girl number 3. Because as I say, this story's been getting really good. It's interesting how she's pairing up with Supergirl. I do like in the last one where she was talking to Supergirl, talking about Streaky, and Streaky used Streaky, is it her or he? I don't even remember the top of my head. He used his or her heat vision to melt a bra, which was thrown at her or him. Really funny. It's just that humanistic character that comes out through the cat, which I thought was kind of neat. So I am enjoying this, and I'm enjoying to see where this story goes because, well, it's actually really well written. I'm looking forward to finding out what this Kryptonian virus is, and maybe I'll get an answer on this one in this issue. I have no idea. So that's what came in on this box, and that's me sharing it with you. Now, this is the last one of these we'll do where we're opening these ones up. I did want to show you guys that issue 5 of the Titan comics, Conan the Barbarian, is in now. So now I do have all the books necessary, once these are all bagged and boarded and processed and put away, where we'll be able to say, time to do the review. Time for that mammoth thing to come to an end so that I can then say, okay, we're done with pull in one of these 2 places. And it's whichever one consistently gives me the better quality that's going to get it. Am I going to continue to find an issue with this U.S. supplier, though? They've already told me. I put it in a cutscene in the end of a prior video where it was, oh, well, we're having an issue getting quality books out of Titan, and these are coming in damaged through the distribution process. I mentioned that earlier, and I do hope Titan is working on fixing that and they become aware of it, because I'd hate to see the energy and the impetus that's sitting behind this Conan the Barbarian title get bogged down by quality control issues, because that's really minutia at this point in time. The big issue is we're putting Conan books on the street and they're doing well, and the populace is liking them and enjoying them and continuing to buy them. Quality control issues, that's just administration. And in losing on administration, that's just dumb. Just dumb. And I hope it doesn't actually end up hurting Conan. Kind of an interesting thing. Very cool. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this little wrap-up we had at the end here. This was a fun one for me. I know I'm going to be reading all those Void Rivals issues first because I've been looking forward to those, and I'm definitely going to read that Transformers issues number 2 before I get into any of the rest of this stuff. Ooh, that's going to be good times. Everybody, we'll see you in the next video.